Time now to head over to the kitchen and say hello to ABC7 Culinary Director, Judi Gallagher. Judi?
Well, when the fall and winter come, I love to bake. I like to bake simple things. I'm not a big pastry chef by any means, but something that's comforting. And to me, that means something like a ricotta cake. The thing I love about this recipe is flexible. You can use cranberries instead of raspberries and mixed berries. You can use peaches, you can use plums, lots of different mixtures. Anything that has ricotta cheese in it, whether it's savory or sweet, I'm in. I just love ricotta cheese. I think you're gonna really love this recipe. It's very simple. If you wanna make it in small loaves to be gifts, that's gonna be perfect too. So stay with me throughout the hour as we bring to you a simple berry ricotta cake. I think you're gonna really like it. So let's get started. Very simple. We're gonna take 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour, a cup of sugar, then we're gonna add, believe it or not, kosher salt. We usually use the Morton salt, but we're going to use kosher salt, about 1/2 teaspoon, and then 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Just gently blend that together. You don't want to be too harsh on the flour because you want a nice, light and fluffy cake. So the next thing we're going to do is the ricotta. We're going to use 1.5 cups of whole milk ricotta cheese. When you're baking, you have to be really careful about the fat-free or the low-fat because the texture is different. So it might be too watery if you use something that's a skim. So I much prefer the whole. That's going to be a really creamy cake. Now we're going to add 3 whole eggs. And when you're baking, there's a big difference between large and extra large. So make sure that what you're using is large. So we're going to mix the ricotta and the eggs together, and then we're going to add vanilla extract. You know, the average is always like a teaspoon in any recipe. I do 1.5 teaspoons because I love vanilla. And especially with this cake, I want it to come through a little bit. Now what I'm also going to do, just to give it a hint of lemon flavor, we're going to serve lemon curd on the side, but just to give this mixture a little hint, we're going to do a little zest of lemon, okay? There we go. So that's going to be just really bringing that cake flavor up perfectly. Now, once this is blended, we're going to take 1 stick of butter, unsalted, and we're slowly going to incorporate that. And the greatest thing about this recipe is you can use fresh and frozen fruit. So depending on what you have, I always have a bag of berries in the freezer because I'm making smoothies a lot. So once you know that you have a bag of cranberries or berries, you basically can whip this up with some standard ingredients. So we've mixed that together, we've folded in the butter. Now we're going to take these frozen berries, and they've been sitting out on the counter here for about 20 minutes. So they're getting the juice, they're starting to unthaw. So I'm not going to put all the juice in. There we go. But I am going to put in some fresh raspberries as well, okay? Now I'm going to mix this all together, and then we're going to go ahead and line it in the pans. And then it's going to bake at a 350-degree oven. If you're doing a round cake, it's going to take almost an hour. And make sure that you spray the pan, then use parchment paper and spray again, and then you'll be fine. I'll be back to keep working on this delicious cake. I think you're going to really like it. So here you see the consistency of the batter, and I want you to see it because it does get pretty thick, okay? If you're using berries straight out of the freezer, obviously it's going to thicken, almost congeal pretty quick, so you want to get it back into the oven really fast. Like I said, you're going to spray out your pan, and then you're going to take parchment paper and you're going to spray the parchment as well. I spray the parchment on both sides just to make it easier. Now I'm going to do this in a loaf pan, because I'm going to bring this over to a friend's house, perfect for like afternoon tea. And this freezes beautifully, as most cakes do, especially without a frosting. Pound cakes, things like this, they just freeze beautifully. So get ahead of the game if you're planning on doing a lot of baking, and you can have that there. So we'll make sure it goes on all sides. Now, it's going to come out of the oven. I used the round so I can show you both sides. So it's going to come out like this. So you're going to flip it over on a cooling rack, and then you can see you still have the parchment So what we're going to do is we're going to just take a slice, and I can tell the moistness of it just by the way my knife goes right in there. Look at that. Doesn't that look fantastic? So let me bring this over here. Now, by all means, you can serve it with whipped cream. I like to sometimes use a little sour cream. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some lemon curd. And you can just buy that right at the grocery store. They have great brands over at the Fresh Market. I'm going to put a couple raspberries right in like that. And voila, you have, this can be a breakfast cake. This can be a tea cake. It can be a dessert cake. But no matter how you serve it, it's going to be easy and delicious and light. So come back in a minute. I'll tell you how you can find the recipe. And we'll check in on a taste as well. So here we have it, a simple ricotta cake with berries, a little bit of that lemon curd just to bring up that flavor, a little tartness. Zest of lemon was not only in the ricotta base that we whipped up, but also a little bit on top. Personally, I like it without the whipped cream. I don't want it too sweet, but the lemon curd adds just the right amount. Now, if you want this recipe, just log on to mysuncoast.com, click on dining, and you'll see the recipe, the video, so much more. Click on our restaurant partners that are on there, find out who's having wine dinners and so many more events. It's all so tasteful. And right now, speaking of taste, I'm going to take a bite, enjoy this cake, and guys, if you're lucky, I'll save you a few slices to take home too.